Hello, beautiful ones. I'm wondering if you're like me. If you have difficulty imagining or understanding something as unimaginable as war. I'm a lover, not a fighter. Perhaps you could say I am conflict averse, unless it's to prove my husband right in an argument. The current conflict in Russia and Ukraine is asking me personally to take a pause because it's so overwhelming to continue to look and witness and hold space. Though I have been doing that for the past few days. My family, my grandma's side of the family is from the Ukraine, and I know I have family there that I haven't actually ever met. So it's very easy to imagine being there, or what if, or all of that. And I have cried so many tears of compassion, prayers for the people of both Russia and the Ukraine. And the pause is to actually take the time to feel it, not to pause and turn away from it, but the pause to actually digest it and not just see another news story on TikTok and then go, and then flick to the next thing and that's about like making your eyebrows perfect. The pause is to actually take the time necessary to look and hold and feel everything that's coming up right now. Because it's very, very easy to read a horrifying story or to witness a video that just breaks your heart and just to go on to the next thing. So I want to invite us all to actually pause if we're able to when we encounter something that involves so much emotion and feeling for anyone and on either side, to actually pause. And if you can, if you have the space available in your heart, to actually drink it in and feel it and have the compassion for people that are in unimaginable circumstances, and pause to let yourself actually have the emotional reaction and let those feelings move through you. And I'm asking you to do this if and only if you have the capacity for it. Because if we don't let ourselves feel fully, the emotions just get stuck in our body. They become stagnant, and that can actually be held in the body and become trauma that's overwhelming to our nervous system. These unprocessed feelings, they can create pockets of stiffness, stagnancy, and then eventually like discomfort, and if it doesn't move at all, disease. Our feelings are meant to move, and sometimes we just don't give them a chance to actually move. If you need to cry, cry. If you need to take a pause and truly feel something, please do before you just scroll away onto the next thing. But my prayer for all of us is that we also, especially if we have the privilege of not being in a zone where there is conflict like this right now, is to not be glued in either, right? We have to witness if we have the capacity, and also we have to retreat into ourselves to process. And it is not a selfish thing to look away and take care of yourself. It's super important. I have this sensation, this feeling, this visceral, deep knowing that at the end of all of this, wherever this is leading, it is going to bring humanity closer together. Oddly, that might seem crazy, but it is. This is a catalytic event, and we're in the middle of very catalytic years that are transforming society right now. And I want to liken it to the Vietnam War, which was the first war that was ever broadcast on television. Now, this was before my time, but I do know that changed the world because for the very first time, people could see the front lines. They could see the pain and the suffering and the humanity of it, instead of it being something out there that was just glorious purpose, that was distant. It brought it into people's living rooms to be able to see the Vietnam War on TV. And now we have social media, and we're able to see the real life stories playing out on Facebook, on TikTok, right? On social media, where you're seeing not just the front lines and the troops, but you're actually getting the glimpses into people's lives. And that, I believe, is going to spark compassion for people on a level that has never been seen. There's going to be a shift in human consciousness because of this event playing out in front of our very eyes. Because people will see people, possibly for the very first time. Instead of seeing them as numbers in a war zone, there's going to be people that you will recognize as someone who could be you, right? There's going to be a cracking open of the human heart. And there already is, and there already has been, but there is more available. And this cracking open is going to shift humanity into greater compassion for each other. And this is part of my prayer, that all that is happening gets to be resolved, first off, as quickly and with as little human suffering as possible. But for this to be playing out in a way that cracks open all of our hearts, so that we understand how connected we are to each other at a deeper and more visceral level than ever before. It's going to shift the way we perceive people in far off and distant lands, which can often just feel so like a textbook, like not a person, but just a thing that we would write about or that we might see on TV, not a real human. And this is what I think is going to shift people seeing people in deeper, closer ways. I broke open my heart last night, and I had already been crying and feeling and imagining and thinking about the family I had never met, and just what if it was someone that I knew. I mean, that's how we pull it in, right? Or there before the grace of God and just an accident of birth, could I be in that place? We can have those kinds of feelings, right? But there was a moment last night that cracked my heart open when I saw a father hug his daughter goodbye as she was leaving with her mother to Poland, and he had to stay behind. And I was like, is he ever going to see her again? Because the men in Ukraine, not the Ukraine, just Ukraine, they have to stay in case there is a draft, which is quite likely. And I just sobbed because I could see my daughter in her place. She was maybe 5 or 6. And I could see my husband and my daughter saying goodbye. And I believe it is only in those moments where we can transpose something and someone that we know into that situation that we truly can have the empathy and the visceral understanding instead of the intellectual understanding. It's like as close as you can get without going through it yourself. Obviously, unless you are in a situation like that yourself, you can't fully understand. We never can. We can't understand what it's like to be in a war zone or to have a child until we go through it. We can think we know. But when we are placed into that kind of ability to imagine something so close to us, we can feel it in our body, and then it changes us, right? It can shift us. It can bring us into that understanding that we are not different and that we are all so deeply connected. And so this is one of my prayers. Again, the first prayer is that this all transpires as quickly and as easily as possible into some kind of peaceful resolution. That is prayer number 1. And number 2 is that because we are witnessing this at a scale that we have never witnessed a war before, happening live in front of our eyes, in front of social media in real time, on TikTok and Instagram and Facebook and who knows what other platforms, that we feel each other. We feel the depths of suffering, and humanity connects to each other in this new way. These new depths of understanding will then come into the collective consciousness and support us all in understanding that borders, these imaginary lines that we've drawn on the earth, on maps, they're not even literally on the earth, but in maps, they don't actually separate us. They cannot, because we are all connected so much more deeply than right now we give ourselves credit for being connected. This world is interconnected. It is impossible now to ignore that. And I pray that this is one of the deepest lessons that comes out of this war, of this experience, right? The pandemic began our understanding of that at the deeper level. We saw how our global economies were connected and how quickly a virus could spread from one country to another because no one is isolated anymore. But also now with the advent of, the internet over the last 10 years and social media the internet's been along for longer, but, really truly over the advent of the internet first 30 years ago and social media in the last 10, 15 years, we've become more connected than we ever have been. And may that crack open our hearts and move from the intellectual understanding into the experience of heart-to-heart connection, compassion, empathy. This is my prayer. There's always going to be hard-won lessons in life, in war. It's never a waste if we can truly extract the lessons and the possibility. And if we set the intention at the beginning, sometimes it's easier to find the lessons. So I know that for me, I'm holding space for the world at this time to understand we're so deeply connected, that pain and suffering in someone else cannot help but affect humanity as a whole on our collective consciousness. And I pray that this is a realization that ripples through our collective consciousness and collective unconscious until it becomes impossible for some human to cause pain to another person because they know that they would actually be causing pain and harm to themselves. That feels like it's a ways off, and still I believe this is steps towards that understanding of how intertwined we are, our hearts, our energies, our biology. We all are connected at the most deep, visceral, tangible level as humans riding around on this planet. So I pray that we can connect our hearts. And I also know this is already happening. And I want to give gratitude and honor to all of the people who are already opening their hearts instead of closing down those connections. But I also just want to encourage you to pause, feel the feelings, and when you need time to integrate, to rest, to take care of yourself, that you do look away. We cannot be fully wide open, aching hearts connected to all of the entire field of humanity at the same time, okay? We need to fill ourselves up, and then when we are back into our bodies, right, then we can open our eyes again and witness and hold space with that love and compassion for all of humanity, holding the highest intentions, holding the intention for the highest outcome, for the greatest good of all, the least amount of suffering and the most amount of growth. So, these are my prayers for humanity, for Russia and Ukraine, for all the citizens, for the land herself. I also am sending you so much love for being witness, for holding your heart open, and also for being aware of when you need to turn inward and take care of you. There has to be a balance. So I encourage you to listen to your heart, feel the feelings, and be where you need to be with yourself and with all of humanity, here and now and moving forward. So much love to you, dear ones. Let's just take a moment to send love out to all hearts that are open to receiving it, to the earth herself, who suffers as we do, to all of the animals and the plants and the trees and the waters, and every other being, visible or even invisible to our eyes, just sending out love and an intention for our connection to deepen and to grow for the highest good of all. Sending you love. It's day 46 of my 365 live challenge. I've never come with such a heavy heart, and also I'm grateful for this chance to connect with you. I'll see you tomorrow.